YouTube, all's it going? The Goat House is back after day 3 of the NFL Combine, going over my winners and losers just like I did for the first 2 days, and we'll do it, of course, for the 4th day as well. And then we'll do a post-Combine mock draft. So we got you guys covered. If you haven't seen the recaps in the first 2 days, go check it out. Go to our channel, check out the recent videos. We are covering more than just the draft. We got free agency, off-season trades, cuts, things like that. So check it out. Like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter, live updates. For not just the Combine, but for the NFL in general. Twitter subs get bonus content. You can check out the links pinned in the comments with our Twitter and our Discord and our sponsors, GLD Shop, which has some NFL jewelry like the Chiefs chain I have on right now, and Liquid IV, Walk the Mock. Also our sponsors. We have codes for all those sites. Go check it out. Receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends. That's what we're talking about because those are the guys in day 3. Bryce Wheaton, West Virginia receiver, really stood out. It's a big body receiver, 6'4", 221, and he ran a 4.38, which I was surprised about. He obviously has that length, has the stride, so I guess that helped, but I was not expecting in the 4.3s, and also tested very well all the way around. Looked pretty good in the drills as well, but a 41-inch vertical is pretty damn good as well there. But, yeah, I was surprised by that 40, and that's big time because he's a bigger guy, and he's really good with those contested catches. We've seen him in the red zone, making those contested catches. Sometimes West Virginia would just throw the ball up to him, obviously. I remember the first game of the year at West Virginia versus Pittsburgh, he was really standing out to me right away. I'm like, this is one I got on my radar now for the NFL draft. And at the end of the game, he actually had an unfortunate drop that led to a pick 6, which led to them losing. So that was just brutal because he had a monster game. But you see... the upside there with him, and even more upside apparently now with the athleticism. But yeah, he wasn't really being talked about a whole lot this early offseason. So we went from like a round 4 guy to potentially an early round 3. Not too many receivers around that range helped themselves a whole lot. Maybe more hurt themselves than they helped themselves. So that kind of boosted him up a bit. It could be a day 2 guy here in Bryce Wheaton from West Virginia. So I like what I saw from him. Zay Flowers, another one, obviously a big name guy from Boston College, been getting some hype recently because he's a really good football player, and he put on, it seemed like 13 pounds of muscle, or 12 pounds ended up being. 5'9", a little short. That's tough, but he plays bigger than that. Because he's a phenomenal athlete. 4.42. Some thought he maybe sneak into the 4.3s, but this is just fine. 4.42 is in the range of what I thought, what most people thought, and that's plenty fast enough, especially for a guy that's 5'9", so he doesn't have the strides. And then the other numbers are very solid as well, 10.73, and then 35.5-inch vertical. Before it was kind of like late 1, early 2. I think we'll see him go. I think it'll be late 1 still, but I really think we'll see him go in round 1. But a big reason why he's a winner is not so much the testing, but I thought he looked really smooth on the field drills there. Especially, I thought he was the best in the gauntlet drill, which shows, quickness, speed, hands. I'd say balance as well. Awareness. All of the above. So I like that drill a lot. Always have, and I thought he looked really smooth in that drill. So just across the board, a really good day. And I think he kind of solidified himself in that conversation to be a first-round pick. I like him as a slot receiver at the next level. We've seen him play a little bit of both. I guess the concern on the outside, some physical corners gave him some issues. Still a really good football player, but I think he can dominate the slot. If he has better quarterback play, that'll elevate him even more because quarterbacks missed him a bit at Boston College. He was getting some elite separation at times, and some of these plays were even schemed up for him, and the guys were just schemed up where the quarterback just that's it's a one read play. Just look at Zay Flowers and let it sling, and they miss him there, and it happened quite a bit. No matter who was that quarterback for Boston College, we've seen a couple play this year, so that was tough. So should have more upside in the NFL actually. Next, Jonathan Mingo. This might be the biggest one actually for me for the receivers. It's tough because Bryce Wheaton at that size, running the way he did. And we'll talk about some other guys that were big winners, but I like Mingo a lot, what he did out there today, because he's kind of a bigger body guy, 6'2". I mean, he isn't giant, but 6'2", pretty built frame, too, 220. Running a 4.46, a little faster than I thought. Being in the 4.4s is a fantastic time. I thought it would have been fine if he was like a 4.52 even. So 4.46, fantastic, super explosive in the drills. 10.9 and then vert 39.5. But I liked him on the field as well. Looked really smooth, catching the ball. Maybe not quite as smooth as Zay Flowers. We don't need him to be. You don't expect him to be, but I thought he was really good on the field. And I'm just thinking about, that's what I love about the combine. Like sometimes you see these guys work out and you kind of go back to remember watching them, whether it was live or if you watch the tape. I was kind of remembering some live play. But yeah, what can we get out of this guy? You start to think, as you see them time better, work out better, you start to think more and more positive. I mean, he's a big body guy that played in the slot and played outside. You can do a lot with him. You can do a lot with him at the next level, and there's a lot to like there because, again, it's a bigger body guy that's faster than you expected. He's pretty damn athletic than where the credit has been given to him. And the fact that, he feels like an outside receiver that's got some upside out there, but the fact that he's got experience in the slot and he could kind of be one of those big body slot receivers of today's game, Juju, Corey Davis, guys like that, who can play outside as well. So I like the idea of Mingo here. And he wasn't getting talked about a whole lot, but there was some people that liked Mingo. Late round 3 was probably where he was at, maybe early 4. Because you did feel the upside for those reasons, like what he did on the field. Not super productive for some reason, though, but just the idea of him in an NFL offense, the kind of the versatility and inside-outside versatility. But I think you go late round 2. I think I like the idea, again, of him, and he tested and played very well out there today on the field. So thought that was a massive winner, the Ole Miss receiver here. Marvin Mims, Oklahoma wide receiver, he had a really good day. I actually thought he was bigger than what I thought. 5'11", 183. The arm length was pretty solid too. It's not the biggest, but for some reason I thought he was going to measure in a little smaller than that. It's not the biggest guy, obviously, but I thought he would measure in pretty much all categories smaller. So I thought that was a win for sure for Mims. He's a pretty decent size. And then he ran. He did. We knew he was very athletic, but he proved it maybe and some. 4.38 40 is flying, 10.9 broad and a 39.5-inch vertical. All those are just freaky numbers there. So, checking the boxes of the freaky athleticism, and then checking the boxes. I thought, it's around the size where I guess he's been listed. I don't remember his Oklahoma where he was listed. I don't really pay attention what teams got him listed as because they're always way bigger than what they actually are. So I kind of just assumed he'd be smaller. But he wasn't. So middle of round 3, kind of the same situation as Mingo, maybe a bigger name than Mingo beforehand, but could go late 2 as well. I thought some receivers might have pushed themselves out of that late 2, early 3, mid 3, actually over this weekend. And I think guys like Mingo and Mims could kind of take their spot, slide up a little bit. So I'll give you what type of receiver these teams are looking for here. So Mims had a really good day. And then Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, monster day for him. I didn't love that he didn't run the 40 because, you always, when you see guys don't do that and they're not hurt, it's like, what are you hiding? So that's tough. Tough start there. And he jumps 35. That's all right. That's getting up there, but it's okay. But then you get to on the field, and he is probably, Zay Flowers to me was probably the smoothest in the first group. And then Jaxon Smith-Njigba in the second group was not only probably the smoothest, in terms of the footwork, the routes, catching the football, but you take him a step up from even the first group champ, in my opinion, Zay Flowers. So I thought basically he was the best catching the ball out there, the moving around, catching the ball. So that's fantastic, obviously. I do value, guys, in pads playing against the defense, how they move around that way a little more. But still, that was great to see. But at the end of the day, which you never see on TV, the 3-cone drill and the 20-yard shuttle take place, which I think is pretty important for certain position groups, and especially for the receivers. I think in and out of breaks, running routes kind of goes into 3-cone. You see, all of that kind of goes into that. And he, not only did he dominate the rest of the competition, because he was way above the other receivers, like way above. But these are incredible numbers. Incredible numbers. The 6.57 and 3-cone, it's this elite timing here. Not just this year, obviously this year because he blew everybody away, but that's really not what matters. I think these are elite numbers in general in a 3.93 shuttle. I mean, I consider everything under like a 4. I mean, NFL receivers, I was going to say anything under a 4.2, but NFL receivers, they definitely better be under a 4.2. But that's still moving pretty good. And a 3.93, ridiculous. So on the field stuff and seeing the footwork and, it kind of translate, onto the field. That it's a guy that could probably get some separation, and then kind of solidifying that, proving it further 3-cone in the 20-yard shuttle. I think those are pretty key for like a route runner, a guy that's going to get separation. So this is a guy that I think could dominate the slot. You might be able to put on the outside a little bit here and there at the next level. He was starting to move downboards a little bit late 1. There was even some thought he could go early 2nd, but he's pretty much a late 1 guy. And there are some concerns. Maybe that's why he was dropping down, and maybe there still is some risk. But I think he's a mid-round. I think he's going to be the first receiver taken. Again, we were kind of thinking that for a while early in this process of the 2023 drafts with mock drafts and everything. Kind of went away from that a little bit, but I think it's back to it. I think he's going to be the first receiver taken middle of the first round. Makes sense to me. But there is some risk because he played in 3 games this year. He didn't play the full 3 games. He had some injuries pop up last year. There wasn't the biggest sample size last year because, he had some first-round talented guys ahead of him, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. But when he did get the opportunity, the Rose Bowl, for an example, he went freaking off, right? And so that was a good sign, but I think you feel kind of safe with Ohio State receivers at the same time. But I guess there's a little risk because there's other reasons there, but just looks so smooth, so good out there today. I think he's going to be the first receiver taken. I do. And then to the quarterbacks, Anthony Richardson definitely put on a show today. The 6'4", 244, 4.43. It was 4.44 at first before the official. A lot of 4s in there. Still a lot of 4s in there, but 4.43 for a quarterback at not just a quarterback, but for a 6'4", but not just for that, but for a 244 pounder. Pretty ridiculous. So quarterback you definitely want to work with. A reminder that it is a pass-first league. You need a pass-first quarterback to win a championship. But Richardson has the potential to be that, but it's kind of a bonus that he can run a 4.43, and then he can break a record for quarterback broad jump in 10.9, and then break a record in quarterback vertical jump in a 40.5-inch vertical. It's just freaky. It just really wows you. So it's a guy that you really want to work with. He does have to work on the accuracy, accuracy stuff, especially underneath intermediate routes. The deep ball's pretty. We saw that in the drills too. The deep ball's really never hasn't been an issue. It's just kind of, trying to be more of a pass-first guy because that's what's win championships and hit the layup throws underneath. And how is he going to be against NFL pressure when he has to throw in the situations where they keep him in the pocket and he has to throw? So those are the questions, but everybody has to work through some things. So he does have a lot of work to do, but a pretty high ceiling, obviously, and it's just comforting, I guess, kind of a bonus to see these numbers, just freaky numbers. Before, middle of the first round, he was starting to get some buzz. Maybe a lot of you out there that make rankings and mock drafts maybe had him in the top 10 before. Definitely a possibility. But now he kind of just put himself in there. If I want to say, like, the floor would be barely outside the top 10, but I'm just fully expecting him to go in the top 10. I'm just thinking more and more about the Seattle Seahawks. Maybe it does feel a little early where they sit right now because Richardson is a gamble. It's a little bit of a project. Maybe to a lot of you like me, it does seem a little early. But I do like the idea of him in Seattle. What they've done with quarterbacks feels like they made quarterbacks better. They know how to develop them, and they made them look better with their system, their scheme, and know how to get the most out of them. You look at Geno Smith last year, so I think they'll have the confidence, but they have the kind of track record to do that stuff too. So getting Richardson back, having him sit behind Geno and kind of go through, like, this is how we did this. This is how we took Geno from this step, or how we take our quarterbacks from this step to this step. So I do like the idea of that. I do think he'd be good in like an Arthur Smith scheme in Atlanta too. But again, a raw prospect for sure. Do think he would need to sit a year, but it's a guy that Daniel Jeremiah was saying that he talked to 2 teams. 2 teams had Richardson as quarterback 2 on their list. So they would take him before some of the other guys. And I actually would think, my money would be on those teams having Richardson at quarterback 2 behind C.J. Stroud would be my guess, actually ahead of Bryce Young, which might surprise people. And that's not a fact. We don't know that for a fact, but that'd be my take. And the reason I say that is because Stroud's a bigger body guy. He doesn't have the athleticism of Richardson, even though he's underrated athletically. But bigger body guy, much better passer. Just hard for me to see Stroud underneath Richardson. I think the only teams that, what would a team find in Stroud that they have him below Richardson? And then what would a team find in a guy like Bryce Young to have below Richardson? I think it's more likely those teams just value the bigger body guys, the frame, the guys that are going to hold up. And Stroud having the size, Young not. So I'd say my money is on the two teams that have Richardson at quarterback 2. Is maybe they're not in love with the smaller frame quarterback, so they probably have Bryce Young, I should say, behind Richardson there. So it's just my opinion, though. But it is interesting because I think we hear people, experts, guys that are in the ears of people around the league talking, like that everyone's going to be different. Like this team's going to have Bryce Young quarterback 1. This team's going to have C.J. Stroud quarterback 1. And this team might have C.J. Stroud 2. But this team might have Anthony Richardson. This team might have Will Levis. But then there's a bunch of these other teams that got Bryce Young, so it might be a little bit like that. So it's going to depend on the team, and it's going to make draft night that much more fun, just because the unexpected there. So just something we just don't see, what Richardson displayed out there today. So that was fun to watch. And I got to throw C.J. Stroud up there, and maybe he didn't help himself on his draft position a whole lot. But I thought he didn't, do the testing drills, which you don't really need to see from a guy like C.J. Stroud. But I thought he was flawless in the drills. We saw that right off the bat. I mean, they start with some slants and some out routes, and it's just perfect timing, perfect accuracy. You can't get any better. The deep balls look pretty. I mean, how the ball comes out, how it gets there, the distance on it. He really could drive it as well. The velocity on some of these balls too is. It's the same with Richardson, the deep balls and the velocity, great. But you see guys like Richardson who's getting actually the most. Most people know Stroud's better, especially right now at least. But Richardson getting all the hype, and then you see them throw like one after. They get a few each, but after each other, and you see the difference today. Right now, and that's not what it's all about. But Stroud is just so much more polished and just ready to go as a passer in the NFL in a passing league. So, and it's a guy that. Sees the field very, very well, and we can compare Ohio State quarterback. I think that's the biggest difference between Stroud and Fields. For Fields' side, he's more athletic, he's faster. For Stroud's side, he is better seeing the field. I think that's pretty damn clear if we're going to compare, because everyone likes to compare to Ohio State quarterbacks all the time, because I guess the ones in the past, really weren't working out too well. I think that's probably why people like to compare to the last one. Maybe Fields still to be determined, had somewhat of a special year last year, especially on the ground. But, Stroud sees the field very well. The pocket mechanics are ridiculous. The pocket presence ridiculous as well, and very, very accurate. So I love that about him. And then LaPorta was reporting that there was just big-time reports from – you talked to multiple quarterback coaches, and they're just – Richardson doing these things that – and I'm a huge C.J. Stroud guy. But am I out of my? I'm realizing Stroud's hitting these crazy throws. But am I out of my seat about it? No. Was I out of my seat when Richardson jumped as high as he did and ran what he did? I was. I definitely was. But after all that, getting on your seat like that, LaPorta talked to quarterback coaches, and they're raving about Stroud and how he threw the ball. So that kind of says a lot there. And I remember some similar things at Ohio State's pro day last year. I know Stroud wasn't in the draft, but he was there throwing. I remember some same reports from coaches, actually. So they're really – so since then, I was like, yeah, this guy might be the best quarterback in that upcoming class, and I'm going to stick to that. He's been my quarterback 1. I like the talent of these other guys, the upside of these other guys. I think Stroud's the best pure passer, and I think he's very underrated with his pocket movement and his mobility in general. But I love that he's a pass-first guy. Before, he was a lock to go top 4, in my opinion. Actually, you would see some mocks with him in the rare, but him in the Falcons-Panthers range. I thought that was ridiculous. But I thought before, I really thought, even though he saw those mocks, that he was a top 4, like the Colts at 4. He's not going to get out of the top 2. I think he's going to go 1. So I guess it depends on who trades up. But I don't know. No matter who's picking 1 or 2, Stroud is going to go in the top 2. He's going to go in the top 2. So locking that in. And he was my quarterback one before, and I didn't really just even decide on my number one player in the draft, but it definitely could be C.J. Stroud. So I'm a big fan there, and especially what he showed today. Talking about some tight ends, Zach Koontz wasn't like a big name tight end coming in this thing. The Old Dominion tight end, 6'7", and running a 4.55, and great, in the explosive drills there. 10-8 broad and a 40-inch vertical for the 6'7" big body tight end guy is pretty ridiculous. So it wasn't really talked about much at all. Potentially could have been a round 6 or 7 guy. It's a deep tight end class, but this is a guy you really want to work with, get in your program there. So that'd be I think could boost him up in the early portion of day 3. So a guy to watch, in a deep tight end class, a guy that we really didn't hear much about, but yeah, he kind of caught my eye with the vert in broad right away, but then runs that 4.55 40. He was lining up to run the 40. He had my eye. He caught my eye already because I'm like, this guy just jumped out of the gym at 6'7". So what's this guy gonna run? But I didn't really have an idea. I did not think in the 4.5s, but he went ahead and did that. So that's a guy apparently a sleeper guy to watch here moving forward. And then Sam LaPorta, the tight end from Iowa, possibly tight end U there. I thought I had a really good day. I got a chance of watching him very recently, and I was impressed. I already knew this is a pretty solid tight end in the class, but was impressed with the physicality and just kind of living up to the Iowa tight end name. It just felt like an Iowa tight end that play like the ones that play in the NFL that are pretty damn good. And then he comes out here and runs a 4.59. Being of the physical tight end that he is. And the other numbers are pretty solid. That 35 vert's pretty good. But a 4.59 is great. Just look good across the board in general. So middle round 3, maybe early round 3 before it was possible. But I think he sneaks in the second round. I think teams feel safe with a guy like this, especially an Iowa tight end. But him having like that physicality, a guy he's a football guy, a guy you want on your team, and then just having a good day definitely helps that, kind of solidifies that. So I was impressed with him. And then some other guys I do want to talk about. Will Levis, I thought, threw the ball better than anybody in that first group. Threw it pretty well. Does the stock change a whole lot? Yeah, maybe. Again, there's a mixture of quarterbacks that might have him at the top, or teams that might have him at the top of the quarterbacks. But I don't know if it really changed anyone's thoughts on him. Like, he's still going to go. The top 4 quarterbacks are going to be. I think Hooker should be in that conversation, but the top 4 quarterbacks are going to be the top 4 quarterbacks. They're going to go in somewhat of the same range there. Demario Douglas, kind of a sleeper receiver from Liberty, a little undersized but fast, big playability. He timed very well. I thought he looked pretty good in the drills. He caught my eye. It was in the gauntlet drill at one point as well. Rashee Rice, the SMU receiver. Yeah, he had some questions here. What is he going to run the 40? I could see, in pretty much anything here. Because he's pretty good at blocking, and he's solid contested catcher as well. And then runs, very well. 4.50 was it, and then just in general looked pretty good. So held the stock a little bit. I'm a little iffy on the SMU receivers. It just seems like whoever they put in there, they're just gonna do like the same thing. It feels like. Trey Palmer had the fastest 40 on the day, so a guy that caught my eye, a guy that could be moving up a little bit. Kayshon Boutte, receiver from LSU. Started the day off poorly, and has a 29-inch vertical. The broad jump was very, very low as well. 40, I'm not, the 4.67 was wrong. We were tweeting about that. Ended up being a 4.5. That's not a big deal at all. But the vert mainly, that is so low that it's literally concerning. Like, I need my receiver to be able to. 29 is so I can pluck guys off the street that are going to jump higher than that, like 100%. So that, I need my receiver to be able to go up and get the ball. So the explosion's not there. 2 years ago, I felt like it was there. I don't know what happened. It just doesn't seem the same, too. So that's tough. And Jordan Addison, maybe not major stock down. Some people talking like it. I wouldn't say major stock down at all. 40 ended up being fine, but a little smaller than I thought he would be. Not a super explosive guy either. I think other receivers maybe passing him up. Maybe he could have had that first receiver off the board title. I don't think he's got that anymore, but he is a good ball player, and the tape speaks for itself, I suppose. But he was actually a lot smaller than I thought he was going to measure in at. So that was tough and didn't really wow in the rest of the day. Some people concerned at first But again, the 40 ended up being a little bit better. But yeah, maybe didn't wow enough that he kind of needed to that since he came in a little undersized. And then Hazelwood from Arkansas, former Oklahoma receiver. He looked stiff, which is weird because I thought he was one of those. And maybe he gained some weight too because he ended up being heavier than I thought, which that weight would be pretty good if you're able to kind of keep your agility and stuff, but he did not, it seemed like, because I thought he was one of those kind of lean, little length on him, a guy that maybe can run faster than we think, but he was completely the opposite, was slow, but mainly just looked like stiff and too upright at times, in the drills. And then Darnell Washington, which I almost put with like the highlighted guys because, running the 4.6 that big. And then he had a crazy one-handed catch to show off his ability with the workouts, the on-field drills, and everything looked good. And we know he's a good blocker already, so that's fantastic. I don't know if his stock really changed that much. There's a lot of wow there because he's such a big guy and he's able to move like that. I was a little you seeing him go up and get that one-handed catch, but then the vertical was pretty underwhelming. I expected like the explosion testing drills to be a little better. But overall, there's a lot to like with him. He could still sneak in a late first. He can still be an early second. Wouldn't completely shock me if he was a mid-second too. But yeah, so I don't know if his stock changes a whole lot. But honestly, but there's a lot of like things you can appreciate, respect, and be like, wow, yes, So Darnell Washington was a pretty big winner on the day. And of course, there was a lot of guys that participated today. There's guys that had good outings. If they're not on here, it doesn't mean they didn't have a good outing. It's just guys that really caught my eye and guys that really moved their draft position, or guys maybe that I just really want to talk about for specific reasons. So one more day left. It is offensive linemen and running backs. It's a pretty good running back class. There's quite a few tackles in a battle for the top tackle in the class and some other guys sneaking up, obviously. So it should be a pretty intriguing day, obviously. And we'll have the same video for day 4. We did this video for all the other days so far. Of course, you can check those out. We'll have a post-combine mock draft really early next week. Free agency is right around the corner, so we'll have you covered with that. Franchise tag deadline coming up very quickly. We got you covered with everything, even on our Twitter, so make sure you follow that. It's a link pinned in the comments. But any other links you're looking for, pinned down there as well. Go to our channel, check out the recent videos. Won't be disappointed. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. All that'd be much appreciated. That is going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.